Hi everyone, Pokemon Unite just received its Season 2 update and there were no changes made to the Pokemon or the map. Maybe there'll be a few buffs and nerfs coming in the next few days, but before that happened I wanted to make a tier list to give my current thoughts regarding the Pokemon in the game. So the way I've ordered this tier list is based on my personal opinion on how strong they are as a Pokemon, and how happy I am to see them being picked up by another player in my team in a solo queue setting. This is all my own opinion, and if you feel any differently, please feel free to discuss it in the comments below. So let's start with the first Pokemon, Absol. Absol is pretty good. I mean, he's really strong early game, however he tends to fall off end game, but if he can get ahead, he stays ahead and he can wreck the whole team on his own. Honestly, I actually don't mind it. I've run into a few strong Absol players recently and it's really changed my mind. I've kind of changed my view on his build as well. I used to think that Night Slash and Psycho Cut was the better build. However, I've been seeing a lot of success on Pursuit and Sucker Punch. Being able to lock down a certain Pokemon really gives him the ability to carry games on his back. There's the next Pokemon, Ninetails. I also don't mind it. Honestly, I think it's a bit more consistent than Absol. However, she has fallen off quite a bit. She takes more of a supportive role these days as she can't carry as hard, but she is still a lane bully. I guess I think I prefer her over Absol in general because of the consistency that she brings. She's not good or bad at anything, she's just there. So she's probably the epitome of I don't mind it tier. Blastoise is a good teammate. It's hard to say no to a Blastoise. Blastoise is very tanky. Whether he goes Rapid Spin or Surf, it's still good. Although these days I still prefer seeing a Hydro Pump Surf. Rapid Spin is good, but it's more situational, I feel. And his Unite move still does a ton of damage for what he is. Blissey's also a good teammate to have, but she's also very situational. I mean, I wouldn't want to see a Blissey unless I saw like a Ninetails or a Cinderace on my team. Maybe even a Greninja. Like, I want to see people who benefit a lot from the helping hand. However, if you go Egg Bomb, I swear you're trolling. Please don't do that. Charizard, dread seeing it. Previously in Master, now in Veteran. You see a Charizard quite a bit these days in the top lane, and I feel like half the time they're trolling. So it's really a coin flip. It's very rare that they know what they're doing, and especially if they go into the lane. I've never seen a Charizard in the last maybe 2 weeks go into the jungle, which is where I feel that he needs to be, because before level 5 he doesn't really do anything. Cinderace, I actually do love seeing Cinderace on my team. He's always consistent, brings out a lot of damage. I personally prefer to go Blaze Kick and Flame Charge. However, I do see people going Pyro Ball and Feint. It comes down to personal preference. The dodge on the Feint is really good, but I prefer the mobility on the Flame Charge myself. Cramorant has also fallen off a lot. I think she brings more to the table than Ninetails does. I don't mind seeing it. Strong early game, falls off end game, has been nerfed in the damage, and the Unite move is still really good at zoning and killing people, even with the damage nerfs. So I will put it above Ninetails. It's not really a good teammate. I don't think he's too strong in the current meta right now. So we'll just put him there. Crustle's an interesting one. Crustle is a good teammate. I'll probably put him at the bottom of good teammates, at the top of don't mind it. Crustle, depending on his playstyle, he's still really good at killing Rotom, Dreadnought, and Zapdos. And sometimes that's all you need. If you run Stealth Rock and Shell Smash, you can just do annoying things around the map, and you know, that can tilt the team off the face of the earth. If anyone has played League of Legends, you'll know how annoying Cinch can be. Crustle's basically the same thing, where the whole team tries to chase you, trying to take you down, and you just draw their attention. At higher levels, it doesn't work too well, but between his Score Shield and his AoE damage, he's still a good teammate to have. Eldegoss, I'm gonna have to put Eldegoss into the love seeing it for now. I have to think about it when I hit the other supports. I do prefer seeing Eldegoss over Blissey. I think Blissey is a bit too situational, whereas Eldegoss is always good. So she has her Leaf Tornado, which can speed up your team, or Pollen Puff, which can provide an AoE heals and damage. You also have the Con Guard, which gives a shield to your whole team, which can be really good, and you know, it obviously provides healing if they don't break the shields as well. So it's always good, and skill floor on Eldegoss is really low. So it doesn't matter how bad the player who picks it up is, as long as they know how to press their buttons, they can do something well. Garchomp, honestly, I feel like I can put Garchomp above Charizard here. So the reason for that is because even though they play a very similar role, people who play Garchomp are usually good at Garchomp, whereas people who play Charizard aren't really good at playing Charizard. they probably play him because he's their first Pokemon starter. However, Garchomp requires a lot more work than Charizard, but he becomes a lot stronger than Charizard, especially if you're running the Dragon Rush and Dragon Claw combo. So I actually dread seeing it in my ranked games. However, if it's a normal game and it's a higher level, I can probably see it working, especially if you can get into the center. So maybe I will put it into the C tier because I can see it working if the team supports him. I mean, if you have an Eldegoss in here, and just support him, maybe a Ninetails as well, just to provide some CC so that he can close in on the enemy team and keep him alive, I can see it working, and I don't mind it as much. Gardevoir is in the same situation, but definitely above Garchomp. Might even put her into the B tier, because I do like seeing my Gardevoirs at the end of the game much more than I like seeing my Garchomp. But obviously she gets dumpstered by people like Absol, so you don't want to put her all the way up here. But she is definitely much more useful than a Cramorant and a Ninetales. So if she is good and she can survive until level 6, then she can bring a lot of damage to the team and a lot of crowd control with her Unite move. And that Unite move can just win team fights on its own. So I might actually just put it at the top of B tier, because I do think that Gardevoir is a better pick than Cramorant right now in a solo queue environment. With how chaotic things are, as long as you can survive, you can do something for your team. Gengar is an interesting one. I can see Gengar working. I don't think Gengar is as good as Absol. I feel like Gengar is still too reliant on landing his attacks. So if he misses one of his attacks or misses his combo, he's basically dead, whereas Absol still brings enough damage to the table with his crits that he can still do something. I mean, Gengar's definitely more of a single target Pokemon if you run Dream Eater, but if you're running Hex Sludge Bomb, then he can do the team wipes, but in any team fight where they bring crowd control to the table, that's just not going to fly, and especially at higher levels, that's just not going to happen too often. So I feel like Shadow Ball Dream Eater is still the way to go, and he's definitely an assassin in that case, so I can see it working. He's definitely stronger now after he got the healing buffs, but he still has too much downtime on his skills for me to put him any higher. Greedon is good, definitely overpowered right now, not too much, but he is very strong, so I do love seeing it on my team. Generally, Greedents do take the lane as well, so they don't fight over the jungle like everyone else, so I do want to put him up here. I honestly do prefer seeing Greedent over Cinderace. He just brings way too much damage to the table. He's tanky, he heals, he can run and score. I mean, he basically does the whole package right now. So, you know what, I'm just going to grab Lucario as well. Lucario is basically the same thing. If you can combine Lucario and Crosser together, you get Greedent. And honestly, right now, I think I actually prefer Greedent over Lucario. Obviously, when we're talking about Greedent, you're running Belch and Covet. You definitely need the mobility from the Covet, and Belch is just a superior move, and you know, the unlimited Belches during your Unite move just wins team fights, steals objectives, and just roll over the enemy team. Greninja is also love seeing it. I honestly prefer Greninja over Cinderace. I prefer playing Cinderace personally, but I feel like Greninja is just a little bit more consistent. The damage on the water shurikens is really high. If you had a duel between Cinderace and Greninja, most of the time it's the Greninja that wins. Basically, when I run into a Greninja as a Cinderace, I often find myself being the one taken out. I'm not sure really why that is. You know, it could be the difference between the bursty nature versus the sustained damage. And it could just come down to the number of crits that you get as well. Machamp, honestly, I haven't seen too many Machamps. However, he does bring a bit of crowd control to the table. He has a really rough early game though, and I would prefer seeing it over a Charizard just because of the amount of damage his Unite move does and how good submission is at starting a team fight and picking someone off. Ideally in the center still. Below Garchomp, I think, can see it working, but you can definitely catch people out of position here. Machamp would beat most of these people in the B tier, but the amount of work required to get him there is just not worth it. Especially if you have to get through the Blastoise and the Greedents and the Crossels. I don't really see it happening too much. So Mamoswine is probably the defender I don't want to see the most. He just feels a little bit too clunky to me. I don't mind playing him. I feel like he's much better early game than late game. I'm going to put him underneath Gardevoir here. He does a lot of damage at the start and he's tanky. As his moves evolve, he just becomes a bit too team reliant. I would prefer seeing a Gardevoir on my team over a Mamoswine. He does bring a decent amount of damage to the table as well as his tankiness. And his crowd control is also really good. Definitely not a game-winning Pokemon, but he can single out a Pokemon. So if he gets onto the Cinderace or the Greninja, he can just take them out of the fight and he can just crowd control them for the entire time. Greedent, I don't even think he can deal with Greedent, honestly. Greedent will just run circles around him. So I'm gonna put him down here. Sometimes you just need a tank. and Mamoswine can do that role. Mr. Mime's an interesting one. I like Mr. Mime personally. I think he's a good teammate. Honestly, people who play Mr. Mime are probably good at Mr. Mime. If you're going to bring him into rank, you're probably confident in your ability to learn confusion barriers. Because really, who runs Guard Swap Psychic, right? So honestly, I'm going to put him above Blissey here as a support. But really, I wouldn't consider him a support. He's more of a damage dealer. Like, he's probably the closest thing to a special attacking all-rounder. So he's a good teammate. If I see him, I'll probably trust him. I'm generally happy to see a Mr. Mime. I mean, his barriers can turn fights around just by blocking off escape routes or blocking access to your team. Not to mention the amount of damage that his confusion can do. He can definitely do a lot of damage, chunking down the enemy team, forcing them to back away. Pikachu is in an interesting spot after the last patch. He's definitely gotten a lot better. His Thunder and Thunderbolt combo is really good right now. He's definitely a lot more early game than late game. And as long as he can maintain that advantage, kind of like an Absol, but I feel like it's definitely more consistent since he does it from a range. He's probably better than a Don't Mind It tier. He's definitely a good teammate. Maybe below Crustle. I think I still prefer the Crustle over the Pikachu, even though the Pikachu does contribute more in the early game. But I feel like Crustle does more at the end of the game. So I'm probably going to put him here. Slowbro is also an interesting one. Honestly, don't mind it. He brings a lot of crowd control to the table, but he's just a little bit weaker compared to the other defenders on the roster. If you look at the other defenders here, we have Greedent, who does a ridiculous amount of damage. Blastoise, ridiculous amount of damage and crowd control. A lot of damage and tankiness. Mamoswine's a true defender and true tank, whereas Slowbro is really good at singling people out, and he can hard counter people with his Unite move, as he can use on people who are unstoppable. You know what? I actually think I prefer Slowbro over Mamoswine. The skill floor on Slowbro is a lot lower, because you just have to throw your surfs and telekinesis out. Telekinesis is obviously a bit harder to land due to how thin the skill shot is, but if you do land it, you can just take people out of the fight. Snorlax is also a great teammate, better than Slowbro, not as good I think as Blastoise right now. I feel like Blastoise has kind of replaced Snorlax as the best defender, other than Greedon. I don't really count Greedon as a defender. He's more of a speedster, let's be real. But I think I'd still prefer seeing Snorlax over Mr. Mime. Yeah, definitely rather see him. His block is just way too good, and his heavy slam can engage from a distance as well. And his Unite move can block entrances if you really need to. Nothing bad about Snorlax, but definitely I don't feel like he brings as much to the table as Blastoise does now. Sylveon is borderline love seeing it. She definitely needs to have some sort of front line in front of her. Hyper Voice is definitely the build to go right now. Although I prefer playing Mystical Fire. Mystical Fire just doesn't have the damage output, even though it can help you duel and dodge skill shots. Like honestly, if you think about it, Cinderace and Greninja are really good at taking out squishies, whereas Sylveon's more geared towards taking out tanks like Blastoise, Snorlax, and Mr. Mime, Blissey. She serves a different role. So what I actually like seeing is I actually like seeing one of these guys in my team and a Sylveon. That way we have something to deal with the tanks and the squishies. So I do love seeing a Sylveon. She's kind of replaced the role of Venusaur as well. So while I'm talking about Venusaur, I'll probably scrap Venusaur. Put it in the top of good teammates. If Sylveon didn't exist, I would probably put Venusaur in the S tier. However, I still don't mind Venusaur. Definitely been nerfed quite a bit. Petal Dance doesn't feel as strong as it used to. She definitely feels a lot squishier now. However, you know, Solar Beam did receive a buff and still great at taking objectives, but definitely not as good as Sylveon right now. And if Sylveon's at the bottom of S tier, then Venusaur has to be at the top of A tier. So comparing Venusaur to the other Pokemon in this tier, I definitely still prefer seeing a Venusaur. If you go Petal Dance, you can be a bit tanky, but honestly, it depends on your playstyle and who's on your team. I think that if you don't have one of these guys, you can definitely go for a Solar Beam and from range, and then you have a Sylveon who's a bit closer. Or even a Greedon or Lucario, really. I don't think I said too much about Lucario, but Lucario is just general good stuff. Definitely want to see him over Cinderace and Greninja. His ability to steal objectives is just way too strong. And the amount of damage he does with Power Up Punch is just way too good as well. Talonflame, this one's tough. I know how strong he is, and I definitely like seeing him in my games. Although I do like him, I'm probably going to put him in good teammates, as I don't want to see him every game. He definitely has a place in this game though, and he can replace people like Lucario and even like Cinderace or Greninja. And Talonflame's really good at killing these guys as well. But as it stands, I think I prefer Talonflame over Venusaur at this point. Just because of the amount of damage he can do and take out people who are just out of position. I mean, the number of times I've run into Talonflame as a Venusaur and just melted is just, I can't even count. Wigglytuff is, I definitely want to put him up in the love seeing it, The question is whether or not I'd rather see it over a Eldegoss. I mean, they provide different types of CC, but if I put him in S tier, that means that it's above Snorlax and Blastoise, which I don't mind actually. I mean, Sing is just really good, and the ability to cleanse all crowd control on your team is also really good. Together with Buddy Barrow, she's just all-round good support with no real glaring weaknesses, so maybe I do put her in the S tier. I think I do prefer seeing a Wigglytuff in my team over an Eldegoss. She's much better at turning a team fight than Eldegoss is, so I have to put her above Eldegoss. As for Zeraora, definitely in the good teammates tier, below Talonflame for sure. Probably want to throw it here actually. So I think I'd rather see a Blastoise over Zeraora, and definitely Venusaur over Zeraora. So Discharge is still a really strong move, but before that he's not really that strong. Most of these Pokemon above him can just wipe the floor with him before he gets discharged. So I'm going to put him down here. But just remember that, you know, Zeraora can win team fights on his own at Zapdos, depending on who he lands his Unite move on and if he can get his discharge on everyone. So I'm just going to leave him here. It's definitely more of a solo queue Pokemon. Generally, they're a little bit more selfish, so I don't always want to see it on my team. But if they know what they're doing, they're definitely a good teammate. Honestly, if I knew the person, probably put it in the love seeing it tier. But in general, I'll probably put it in the good teammates tier. So this is my current thoughts on the Pokemon in the game. Let me know if you think I've put some Pokemon too high or some Pokemon too low. As I said previously, this is all my opinion. When the next patch comes out and changes are made to some of these Pokemon, I'll give my predictions and see how they turn out. But for now, these are my current thoughts. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to comment down below about how you think I placed them.